Out of the 6 most populated continents, Asia has produced the fewest NBA players. Despite a population of nearly 5 billion people, only 29 Asian players have ever suited up in an NBA game, including US-born players with an Asian descent. If we exclude players from Turkey, Israel, and Georgia who are geographically in Asia, but they compete in Eurobasket, these are the top 10 best Asian players in NBA history. You might think that the first Asian players came to the NBA during the 90s or early 2000s, but you'd be wrong. In fact, the first Asian player got drafted before Earl Lloyd, Chuck Cooper, and Nat Clifton, the first 3 black NBA players who entered the league in 1950. But Wataru Misaka came to the NBA in 1947, a 5'7" point guard born in Utah, to a Japanese family that migrated to the US in the 1920s. Misaka played collegiate basketball at Weber College, the alma mater of Damian Lillard. And in the early 1940s, Watt led Weber to 2 championships. He then enrolled in the University of Utah, where he won the 1944 NCAA tournament. And in 1947, he won the National Invitational Tournament with the Utes, after which the New York Knicks drafted him with the 61st pick in the BAA draft, as the league wasn't yet called the NBA. Thus, Misaka became the first non-Caucasian to play in the NBA. But his run in the league was short-lived. Wataru was cut after scoring 7 points in 3 games, and never received a full explanation as to why. Critical observers might point to his race, since Misaka was often booed throughout his career due to anti-Japanese sentiment in the World War II era. However, Misaka himself thought it was for basketball reasons. The Knicks had too many guards on the roster, and coming in at 5'7" and 150 pounds, Misaka wasn't exactly a physical specimen full of long-term potential. And even though his career was cut short, and there were far better players, due to historical reasons, Misaka's name had to be mentioned.
First non-white player in the NBA. Mr. Misaka is here.
After Misaka, it took more than 30 years for another Asian player to be drafted, and that player was Raymond Townsend, the 22nd pick in the 1978 NBA draft. Townsend was half American, half Filipino, becoming the first Asian player to win the NCAA championship in 1975 with UCLA. However, the 6' 3-point guard played only 3 seasons in the NBA, appearing in just 154 games, and that's why the number 9 spot on our list doesn't belong to him, but to another biracial player who came after him, becoming only the 4th Asian player in the NBA. It was Rex Walters, who's half white, half Japanese, and was selected 16th overall in the 1993 NBA draft. I consider myself Japanese American. I just don't look it. People are always surprised. Now we got a guy like Jeremy Lin breaking barriers, and I'd like to think I played a small part in that. Walters made a bigger mark in the NBA than his predecessors, staying in the league for 7 years. Standing at 6'4", Walters mainly came off the bench, averaging 4.6 points in 13 minutes of playing time. But this next player broke the stereotype of Asians being small, and him getting drafted was historic. In 1999, the 7-foot center Wang Zhizhu became the first Chinese player drafted to the NBA, selected 36th overall by the Mavericks. And before he came to America, Wang was the Shaquille O'Neal of the Chinese Basketball Association. Playing for the Beiyou Rockets, Wang dominated the CBA, winning 6 consecutive championships from '96 to 2001, including the MVP title, the Finals MVP, and leading the league in blocks 4 times. Wang arrived in Dallas after winning his last CBA championship title, when there were fewer than 10 games left in the 2000-2001 season. 2 days after Dallas was eliminated from the playoffs, Wang hurried back to China to play in the 2001 East Asian Games, according to an agreement between the Chinese authorities and the Dallas Mavericks. When he returned, Wang helped the Rockets defeat Yao Ming's Shanghai Sharks by 1 point in the final, after which he came to the NBA for good. In 2002, his first full season, Zhizhu didn't really play much. But when he was on the court, he was solid, averaging 5.6 points and 2 rebounds in just 11 minutes of play. However, what was extraordinary for a player of his size is that he shot 41% for 3, a better percentage than Dirk Nowitzki. If he played in the modern era, Wang's shooting prowess would probably get him significant playing time. But in the early 2000s, shooting big men were considered odd, as most coaches wanted their centers to battle in the post. And that's why Wang's career in the NBA didn't last too long. After a promising start in Dallas, he spent the next 3 seasons playing for the Clippers and the Heat, appearing in just 77 games and averaging 8 minutes per contest. Zhizhu then returned to the CBA, where he won another championship and Finals MVP, proving that his talent wasn't properly recognized in the U.S. And just like Wang, the Japanese 6'9" forward Yuta Watanabe made basketball history. Born in Japan in 1994, Watanabe became the first Japanese-born student athlete to secure an NCAA Division I basketball scholarship. Playing for George Washington University as a power forward, Watanabe struggled at first, but as time went on, he came into his own. As a senior, Yuta was George Washington's leading scorer at 16.3 points per game and second leading rebounder with 6.1 per game, while also leading the team in blocks. He was named the Atlantic 10 Defensive Player of the Year, becoming the first George Washington player to win the award. Then, after going undrafted in the 2018 NBA Draft, Watanabe signed a two-way contract with the Memphis Grizzlies. But he barely played for Memphis, appearing in just 33 games in his first two seasons, before signing a contract with the Raptors. In his first season in Canada, Watanabe appeared in 50 games, averaging 4.4 points in 15 minutes. However, just like Wong, the Japanese forward was an excellent three-point shooter, making 40% of his shots from deep. He last played for the Grizzlies in 2024, after which he decided to return home to Japan due to his lack of playing time in the NBA. But even though his NBA career didn't really pan out, he still played for 6 years in the league, which is above average, mainly because he was a very good defender and rarely made mistakes. But even though he wasn't that great defensively, this next player was supposed to be the Asian Dirk Nowitzki. Yi Jianlian was a dominant center in the CBA, winning the MVP award and 3 championships between 2004 and 2006. Standing at 7 feet with a soft touch, Yi averaged 25 points and 11 rebounds per game, playing for the Guangdong Tigers in 2007 while shooting over 58% from the field and 82% from the free throw line. Yi was selected 6th overall by the Bucks in the 2007 NBA Draft, ahead of Joakim Noah, Marc Gasol, Nick Young, and several other high-profile players. The Bucks thought Jianlian was going to be something between Dirk and Yao, but it didn't really work out that way. As a rookie, he averaged 8.6 points and 5.2 rebounds in 25 minutes on the court, which wasn't too bad. But unlike the guys he was supposed to mimic, Yi didn't have a strong work ethic or a humble mindset. Yi seemed to be more concerned about playing in a city with a large Asian community than actually getting on the court, and demanded a trade despite the Bucks guaranteeing him a place in the rotation and more playing time. But Yi didn't want to be in Milwaukee, so the Bucks traded him to the Nets after his rookie season. Jianlian spent 2 years in New Jersey, and his second year there, he averaged 12 points, 7 rebounds, and 1 block per game, while making 37% from 3 and 80% from the free throw line. When he first played against Yao Ming, he scored 19 points and grabbed 9 rebounds, including 2 three-pointers, while Yao recorded 28 points and 9 rebounds. That game between the two was watched by over 200 million people in China, making it one of the most watched games in NBA history. After the game, Yao called Yi's talent unbelievable, and Tracy McGrady said Yi had a tremendous upside in this league. However, due to injuries, a poor work ethic, and an unwillingness to adapt to the NBA lifestyle, he was out of the league after 5 seasons, averaging 8 points and 5 rebounds in 272 games. But nearly 20 years before Yi Jianlian was drafted, another Asian-born player became a lottery pick. It was Ronnie Cycli, a Lebanese-born player, who became one of the first players drafted from outside the U.S. Born in Beirut, Cycli spent his youth in Lebanon and Greece before moving to the States in 1983, where he attended Syracuse University. As a junior, the 6'11" center led the Orange to the NCAA Finals, averaging 22 points and 11 rebounds per game, but the Indiana Hoosiers defeated them in the championship game. Cycli graduated from Syracuse as the school's all-time leading rebounder, second in block shots, and 4th in scoring. At the time, he was only the second player ever to record 1,000 points and rebounds during his tenure at Syracuse. Drafted 9th overall by the Miami Heat, Cycli hit the ground running, winning the award for the most improved player in his second season. In a career that lasted 11 years, the Lebanese center averaged 14.7 points and 9.5 rebounds per game, and at the time of his retirement, he was the best Asian player ever in the NBA. But if there was a title for the best Asian 6th man of all time, it would go to Jordan Clarkson. Clarkson is half black, half Filipino from his mother's side. And even though he was born and raised in the U.S., Jordan holds Filipino citizenship and has represented the Philippines national team. Drafted in 2014 as the 46th overall pick, Jordan quickly showed his knack for scoring, averaging 12 points per game as a rookie. In 2018, while playing for the Utah Jazz, Clarkson won the 6th Man of the Year award, averaging 18.4 points per game. Between 2020 2020 and 2022, he played in 24 playoff games for the Jazz, averaging 17 points off the bench in just 28 minutes on the court, which further established his reputation as a microwave scorer. From 2018, Clarkson represented the Philippines on the international scene, most notably playing for them in the 2023 World Cup, where he averaged 26 points per game. And just like Clarkson, there's another current NBA player who is half Asian from his mother's side. Rui Hachimura is half Japanese, half Beninese, and was born and raised in Japan. After dominating the high school competition, in 2016, Rui signed a letter of intent to join Gonzaga University. With the Bulldogs, he didn't play much initially, but by his junior season, he had become one of the best players in the NCAA. Hachimura averaged 19.7 points and 6.5 rebounds per game, while making 59% of his shots, including 42% from three, which earned him the Conference Player of the Year award. In 2019, Hachimura announced that he would forego his final year of eligibility and declared for the 2019 NBA Draft, where he was drafted 9th overall by the Washington Wizards. Rui thus became the first Japanese player to get drafted in the first round, and he justified this selection by scoring 13.5 points per game as a rookie. So far, in his 6-year career, Hachimura has proven to be one of the most efficient scorers in the league, especially in the playoffs. His 62% effective field goal percentage currently ranks 4th all-time, despite limited playoff experience of only 31 games. But due to his shooting prowess, a sturdy 6'8" frame, and the mentorship from LeBron, Hachimura could have the longest career out of all Asian players, unless, of course, young Hansen becomes the Chinese version of Nikola Jokic. But even if Rui or Hansen somehow became the league MVP, they would hardly reach the popularity that a certain Asian player enjoyed in 2012. Of course, we're talking about Jeremy Lin, who's mostly known for the Linsanity and those magical few months when he played for the Knicks. Fighting even to stay on the roster, not getting recognized by security, and sleeping on his brother's couch, Lin finally got an opportunity on February 4th, 2012. After several Knicks guards were injured, Lin got a chance to show what he's got against the New Jersey Nets and their all-star point guard, Deron Williams. Playing like a man possessed, Lin finished with 25 points, 5 rebounds, and 7 assists, all career highs in a 99-92 Knicks win. Over the next 2 weeks, Jeremy averaged 24 points and 9 assists per game, leading New York to 7 consecutive victories and transforming from a virtual nobody to a global sensation. Lin had the second highest jersey sales in the NBA that season, which is amazing considering he only played 35 games that year. And even though the rest of his career didn't quite compete with the hype of Linsanity, Jeremy still had a solid 9-year career, averaging 11.6 points and 4.3 assists per game, and winning an NBA championship with the Raptors in 2019. But even though Clarkson and Hachimura are arguably better players than Lin, the 6'3" guard from Taiwan transcended basketball and had a far bigger cultural impact. Because of his size and rags-to-riches basketball story that's almost like a fairy tale, Lin broke down racial barriers that kept Asian players from competing in the NBA and popularized basketball in Asia like no other player, apart from one very tall guy. The only Asian player more popular than Lin, and the synonym for Asian basketball worldwide, is the Hall of Fame center Yao Ming. The Great Wall of China was unlike anything seen before in the NBA. Standing at 7'6", Yao is one of the 4 tallest players in NBA history, and yet he could play like a guard. With a feathery touch around the basket, a silky smooth jumper, and some fancy behind-the-back moves, Yao was an anomaly. An 8-time All-Star and 5-time All-NBA member, Yao was one of the best players in the world in his prime, and one of the hardest to guard. The Chinese giant averaged 19 points, 9 rebounds, and 2 assists per game in his career. But those numbers don't do his talent justice. If it wasn't for all those injuries to his feet and knees, Yao could have been the MVP and one of the greatest centers ever. But unfortunately, injuries forced him to retire at the age of 30. But even in just 8 seasons, Yao did more than enough to become a legend, and he's the best Asian player of all time. Thank you for watching, and if you like this video, we have another one for you right here.